Good morning, students. Yesterday we were discussing about mutation and some part of the mutation was left. So we are going to complete mutation today. Yesterday we talked about chromosomal mutations and gene mutations. In gene mutations, we were talking about substitution. Substitution means here one nitrogenous base is replaced by another nitrogenous base. It can be a transition in which a purine is replaced by a purine or pyrimidine is replaced by another pyrimidine, or a transversion situation where a purine can be replaced by pyrimidine or vice versa. Now in substitution mutation, we are saying that only one nitrogenous base is being replaced. That means a single codon will be affected. Suppose this is a codon and in this codon G is replaced and the situation now is ACC. That means when we are saying that deletion and insertion is leading to frame shift mutations, these type of frame shift mutations are not seen in substitution, because here only one single codon will be affected and the complete framework will not be affected. Now, effect of this single codon, it can be of three types. It can be a nonsense mutation. Nonsense mutation means because of the change in one single codon, now this codon start behaving as, or you can say there is an insertion of stop codon. Any of the codon, it will convert into a stop codon, and stop codon simply means it is the point where translation or protein synthesis will stop. So whenever in a sequence a stop codon is coming, then the protein sequence will be inhibited. Now whenever there is a stop codon in between the sequence, that means over there the protein synthesis will stop and the protein will not be completely synthesized. And if protein is not going to be completely synthesized, that means it remains unfunctional, or you can say non-functional. It is not going to function. The different stop codons are UAA, UAG and UGA. So because of the any change in normal codon, if they are going to convert into these stop codons, there will be stoppage of protein synthesis. That is a nonsense mutation. The second one is a missense mutation. Missense mutation means again there is change in one single codon, and if this codon, it was, suppose it was coding for serine, but because normally it was coding for serine, but because of the change in the nitrogenous base, the codon is affected and now it is coding for methionine. And because of the incorporation of this methionine in the protein sequence, in the chain of amino acids, now the protein becomes non-functional. So what happened in missense mutation? The change in the codon had led to the change in the amino acid. And because of the change in the amino acid, the protein become a non-functional protein. Such type of mutations are missense mutation. And the third one is same sense mutation. Same sense mutation means after changing in the codon, there is no change coming in the amino acid. Earlier also it was coding for serine, and after changing one nitrogenous base, again it is coding for serine. So this is not going to affect the protein. In both nonsense and missense situation, the protein will be affected, but in the same sense mutation, the protein will not be affected and it can behave as a normal functional protein. So this kind of situation is occurring in substitution, and we have already discussed the situation that was occurring in deletion and insertion, that was frame shift mutations. Now these mutations, the gene mutations, they can be of two types. depending upon how many nitrogenous bases are involved. It can be a point mutation. Point mutation simply means that only one nitrogenous base is going to change. Only one nitrogenous base is affected means only a single point is affected, is mutated. That is a point mutation. The second one is gross mutation. Gross mutation means more than one. One nitrogenous base is mutated. That is a gross mutation. Now, when such type of mutations are occurring, the majority of the chances of such type of mutations are during the process of DNA replication. Earlier also we are having a discussion on this topic. Still I am discussing it again. We all know that DNA is a double helical structure in which two strands are there, and these two strands are running anti-parallel to each other. One is running in 5' to 3' direction and another one is 3' to 5' direction. Now this is how the DNA is present in our cells. When these cells are going for division, there is requirement of extra copy of DNA so that the daughter cells are going to have equal amount of DNA. So the DNA replication or DNA copying starts. For DNA copying, what happens? This DNA, the two helix, the two strands are going to open up. There is opening of these two strands. Now after opening of these two strands, in the next chapter we will discuss DNA replication, transcription and translation in detail, but just a brief introduction over here. So after opening, another strand is going to form on the old strand. The information that is present on the old strand is used for the formation of new strand by various enzymes like DNA polymerases are involved. When these new strands are formed, the DNA polymerase enzyme that is responsible is not having error-proof mechanism. This enzyme is not having a error-proof mechanism. That means the new DNA that is formed over here, this new DNA is not the exact copy or it is not completely identical to the older strand. Some changes at some points, some changes have occurred. There are errors because of addition of nitrogenous bases, and because this DNA polymerase cannot remove those errors, so these changes remains in the DNA. So newly formed DNA, they are having some changes from the older strands, and this is how the gene mutations are coming. If here one nitrogenous base is occurring, base is changed, that means a point mutation has occurred. So this is how the mutations are occurring, and these changes are important because these are leading to variation. These changes are the source of variations, and variations we all know that they are helping us to survive in the changing environment, and these mutations are also the raw material for the process of evolution. Now these mutations, the reason for the occurrence of mutation, the reason can be a spontaneous reason, we call as spontaneous mutation, or it can be induced, just like we talked about that in Drosophila melanogaster, T.H. Morgan induced various mutations, or you can say changes. So by using some of the agents, mutations can be induced also. So the second type of mutation is induced mutation. Spontaneous mutation means that the mutations are occurring by their own, spontaneously. But if we see the rate of spontaneous mutations, the rate is very low. The rate of occurrence of spontaneous mutations by their own is very low. And these are almost sudden and random changes. If an individual or organism comes in contact with some of the agents, then some of the chemicals like formaldehyde, 5-bromouracil, then the chances of mutations increases. So, induced mutations, the organism is exposed to such agents which are acting as a mutagen. Mutagen are those agents which are going to induce mutation. So when an organism is placed in a specific situation where that organism is coming in contact with mutagens, the chances of mutation increases, and those type of mutations are known as induced mutations. The mutagens can be radiations, various radiations like alpha rays, beta radiations, gamma radiations, X-rays, cosmic rays. They can lead to mutations. The second can be chemicals. Lots of chemicals are also acting as mutagens which are responsible for inducing mutation. These chemicals can be formaldehyde, peroxides, 5-bromouracil, and many more. So these are some of the mutagens which are responsible for inducing mutations. Now these mutations, the functions, they are advantageous in some of the cases, like they are leading to variations, and these variations are helpful in our changing environment. They are helping to survive us or to adapt us in the changing environment. The second is they are acting as a raw material in the process of evolution. Because of the continuous mutations, changes, variations are continuously occurring, and when there is lots of time happened, these mutations, these variations are going to accumulate, and because of their accumulation, the previous species might get changed into a new species, and that is what we are going to talk about in evolution. We have used this process of mutation in agriculture also. If we see the quality of plants, today we have changed the quality of plants by modification of genes. And modification or alteration of gene is taking place by the help of mutation. We are going to change a complete gene. We can remove a gene or we can add on extra gene in any of the plant, that is giving us the desired characteristics. So we have improved our crops with the help of mutations. We have improved our animal husbandry also. To improve the quality and quantity of milk, various cattle, they are also improved by the process of mutations. So this is how mutation is helpful. That's all about mutation. The next topic which we are going to discuss today is pedigree analysis. This is a new topic for us. What is pedigree analysis? Pedigree analysis is basically done by a genetic counselor, and this method is used to understand the inheritance pattern in a family. It is used for human beings to study human inheritance, but it can be used for some animals also. See, if we talk about the inheritance pattern in plants, it is very easy to study inheritance pattern in plants because plants are having short lifetime. They are giving us number of seeds. We can study lot more generations of plant. Then we are having contrasting characters in plants. Such type of characteristics are not present in humans. So if we want to study human inheritance, the pattern of inheritance of some of the traits, we are finding various type of problems. So what are the problems in studying human inheritance? The first thing is lifespan. Humans are having big lifespan, so it is difficult to study the inheritance pattern generation after generation because one individual can see 2 or maximum 3 generations in his or her lifetime. Second, the number of offsprings are very less. The progeny that are coming in generations 2 or 3, maximum 4. So number of offsprings are very less. Then specialized mating. Specific mating is also not possible in human beings. The characters that are present in human beings, most of the characters are quantitative characters. So, the quantitative character means we are getting a range of phenotypes and no contrasting characters are present. So, no contrasting characters and it is difficult to deal with such type of characters. So, there are lots of problems that are coming in the study of human inheritance. The solution of this study is pedigree analysis. What the genetic counselors or doctors are doing, they take information of the genetic condition from the patient or individual who wants to go with pedigree analysis, and then they draw a chart, a family chart of all the information. The family chart is drawn in form of generations, means in a sequence they are going to draw each and every generation and each and every member of the generation. We will see how the pedigree charts are drawn. So, to deal with all these problems, the simple solution is to go for pedigree analysis. In pedigree analysis, we can study various characters. Like normal characters can be studied, height, skin color, hair color, various characters. But most of the pedigree analysis is done on mutations, or you can say gene abnormalities, chromosomal abnormalities. When there are specific abnormalities the individual is suffering, that individual can go for a pedigree analysis, and these are very helpful for them. For pedigree analysis, specific symbols are used. What type of symbols are used for pedigree analysis? If we want to show a male in a family, the male is shown by making a square. So in pedigree analysis, the square represents a male. If this box is not colored, it is a normal male. If we want to represent a female, a circle is used to represent a female, a normal female. And this is how we represent a sex that is not specified. Now, if we want to show a male or female, but that male or female is affected, that is not normal. So what we are going to do? We are going to shade it. So this square is representing a male, but this is a affected male. In the same way, we are going to represent a female with circle, but a affected female with the shaded portion. So this is affected female. Now, with these symbols, if we represent them with the help of a horizontal line, a male is there and a female, and a horizontal line is there, that means the mating type. This is showing mating between a male and the female. And if we want to represent the offsprings are represented as the parents are written like this, and with a vertical line, the progeny, again a horizontal line, and this is how the progeny or the offspring are shown. Plus they are shown in a sequence. Sequence means by the birth. If this individual is born first, so we are going to see on the left side, then next a boy, and next is also a boy. This simply means these two parents are having 3 offsprings. The first one born was a girl, the second is a boy, and the third is also a boy. So it is written in a sequence, and these are showing generations also. This is the first generation, this is the second generation, and if we want to write the third generation, that will be written over here. And we can number, we will number the also. This is the first member of second generation, written as second one, first member of second generation, 2 second member of second generation, and 3 third member of second generation. So this is how the offsprings are shown. These are some of the symbols that are used in the pedigree analysis. When we draw pedigree analysis, we are going to represent, means there are 4 type of traits which are represented in a pedigree analysis. It can be a autosomal dominant trait, autosomal recessive trait, sex-linked dominant, sex-linked recessive trait. Another one is there, that is Y-linked trait, but that is only going to occur in males. Means our father is only going to transfer this to the son. Daughter are not showing this Y-linked trait. Now what do we understand by autosomal dominant? When we see the words autosomal, that simply means here autosomes are affected. So we know that 22 chromosomes are autosomes, and XX or XY, they are allosomes or sex chromosomes. Simply, if out of these 22 chromosomes, any of the chromosome is affected, and that is a dominant trait, so expression of only one dominant character, say this situation, will cause a abnormality or a genetic disorder. So only one dominant chromosome or one dominant allele is responsible over here for the expression. That is a autosomal dominant trait. If we talk about a autosomal recessive trait, that means two recessive alleles are required for the expression of the abnormality or a genetic disorder. This will be the condition in which the trait will be visible. If we talk about sex-linked dominant trait, sex-linked dominant trait simply means that in males either the X chromosomes or it can be X or Y chromosome in females it is XX and in males it is XY. So sex-linked means when the sex chromosomes are affected. This is how these traits are represented. We can understand this with the help of an example. So first, let me draw a pedigree for you so that you can better understand. So starting with the pedigree. I am going to draw a pedigree and this pedigree is showing 3 generations. What this pedigree means, which I am drawing, the first generation, the parents of first generation, and over here I am drawing the second generation, means their progeny. Now mating is taking place, marriage is going to take place with over here, and their offsprings. So here 3 are there, a boy, a girl and a boy. This is showing 2 progenies, a boy and a girl, and over here 3 are present. So this is a pedigree. This is how a pedigree look like. Now the simple characteristics of this pedigree is, this pedigree is showing 3 generations. The first generation, the second generation and the third generation. Now if we want to number, these are the 2 members of first generation. These are the rest members of, these are the members of second generation. And these are the members of third generation. This is how the pedigree is made. Now I have shown over here a circle means a female and a shaded portion also means this female is affected. This is a pedigree. Suppose we are talking about fused earlobes. And fused earlobes is a recessive condition. Which recessive condition? Autosomal recessive condition. That means the gene is present on a autosome. And the parents are normal. But out of their 3 offspring, one is affected, or you can say one is having fused ear lobes. If both the parents were having this dominant trait, means if I write over here that they are having both the alleles dominant, then there is no chance of getting a recessive homozygous from this case. That means the parents are not having this genotype. They must have a heterozygous situation. You can also make a cross by using this heterozygous situation. Then only there is chances of coming this genotype, and only this genotype is responsible for the fused ear lobes. So from this pedigree we have understood that these parents were heterozygotes. Now if we talk about the remaining 2 children of these parents, then possibility is they can be homozygous or heterozygotes, and it is very difficult to find out whether they are homozygous or heterozygous. So this can be the situation in both the cases. If we see the chances, if we make a cross, suppose we are making a cross, here we are going to get, this is the recessive one, but out of these dominant one, if we try to find out the probability of getting the heterozygotes, it is 2 out of 3. The probability of heterozygotes is 2 by 3. That means there are chances that either this member or this member may be a heterozygote. So more chances are of getting a heterozygote as compared to the homozygotes. Now the individuals with whom they are married, that will decide whether their next progeny, next generation will also have this fused earlobes or not. Suppose this individual is going to marry with the individual with this type of genotype. That means the chances of fused earlobes are not there. These can be carriers. Here, if this is heterozygote and this is a homozygote, then chances of heterozygote is there, but no fused condition will be present. This individual, if this individual wanted to avoid this fused earlobe situation, she has to marry an individual with both the dominant alleles. Reason, now they will be heterozygotes and no homozygous recessive are going to be formed. But if this will be the situation, there are chances of getting a homozygous recessive. Same situation is with here also. So with making such a type of pedigree, we can find out the situations, the affected situations, and a genetic counselor or doctor can give advice for the individual they wanted to marry, the genotype which this individual must have to avoid a genetic disorder. So this is one example of pedigree. We can discuss some other examples also. For example, if we want to discuss a autosomal dominant trait. So I am making a pedigree that is showing a autosomal dominant trait. For example, we are taking muscular dystrophy. So for the expression of this disorder, there is requirement of only one single dominant allele. So let me make a pedigree. So here these individuals are affected. This individual is also affected. Then this individual will be normal and this is also affected. This individual is going to marry and the offsprings are also normal. Say it is a girl. This individual is getting married and out of 3 offsprings, this is the situation. This is affected and this is also affected. So this is a pedigree that is showing the muscular dystrophy condition. Now this is generation 1, this is generation 2 and this is generation 3. These are the members 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now this is a autosomal dominant trait. Always remember one thing about, if you are given a pedigree and you need to find out whether it is a dominant or recessive, there is one simple thing with the help of which you can easily find out the difference between dominant and recessive for sure. That is, if it is a dominant trait, then there is no skip of generation. Means you are going to find that disorder or diseased condition each and every generation. If you are seeing the first generation, here also an individual is present with disease situation. Second also, there is disease situation, and in third generation also. But if we see a recessive trait, there are skipping of generations. Might be this second generation is not so showing any of the diseased individual, because in recessive situations carriers are possible, but in dominant situation carriers are not possible. That's why they are going to give their expression in each and every generation. So no skipping of generation will be visible in the dominant trait. It is a autosomal dominant trait, means only one dominant gene allele is enough for the expression. This must be a recessive, that's why there is no expression of trait. Same situation is again, here one dominant is present, recessive is present, and this is how we are going to find out. So only one dominant allele is enough for a particular disorder in a autosomal dominant trait. So this is how you can find out the genotypes that are present in a progeny. So this is all for today. Next time we will start with the genetic disorders.